Recording. Okay, so this is Marketing 690, and we're looking at Module 4. So this is our agenda for tonight. We're going to review, well, I should say Module 3, not 2. We're going to look at participation, the assignment, the research. I'm going to do a little bit on research and using the library, and then I'm going to talk about Module 4 assignments. So I mentioned this last time, but I think it's worth repeating. It's important to earn all of the participation points. People who post early tend to get higher grades on assignments, and I think that's because they have less stress, and because they've participated earlier, they can focus at the end of the week on assignments. So I think participating early in the week makes a huge difference. Now here's an interesting statistic. 35% of the postings for the week this week were submitted on Sunday. That means that 1/3 of all the postings were done yesterday, which is a pretty high number, not as high as the other class, which is 42%, but it means that people are waiting till the end of the week to get most of their work done. And I think that's why people are challenged to get everything done. As I said, you participate early in the week. Make sure that you use citations and references on all of your postings to provide supporting evidence, and use the proper format for citations and references. I'm still seeing Belch 2015 as a citation, when in fact it should be Belch and Belch 2015. When you have two authors, both of them have to be in the citations. I know this week was a little bit weird with that you had to review somebody else's postings, which made it tougher to engage in other things. But the more you can engage with each other, I think you're going to learn more and get more out of it. And certainly responding to my postings, you can earn the engagement points by responding to me when you don't have to do something specific like you had to do last time and you have to do this time, which is the legal, brand, and compliance implications. It's a little bit more challenging. But I do try to post a response to everyone who gets their initial posting in by Thursday night. If it's after Thursday, which is after the due date, it's not as likely that I will respond to you. Use acceptable sources, which are books, business journals, articles, and be substantive. I think that I posted in the announcements for Module 2 the definition of substantive, if you have any questions about what it means to be substantive. Read all of the instructor postings. Avoid agreeing with incorrect comments. So, for instance, there were a couple of incorrect comments this week, and I went in and I posted something saying this is not exactly right. And people in their evaluation kept going with the misinformation. Also, you can get information that can apply to assignments. I posted a lot of stuff this week that related to what you were talking about, and I saw that it was obvious a lot of people didn't read it because they just kept going down the wrong path. For instance, there was something about, and I don't remember who posted it, that it's not a good idea to apologize. Well, I responded, it is a good idea to apologize. I used some research that showed that people get sued less when they apologize, that apologies can make a huge difference. Well, people kept going on the route of don't apologize. And that was the feedback also that somebody got on their message. The person who originally posted don't apologize continued with that and giving feedback to somebody else. AID, which is application and analysis. It's supposed to be information and insights. I typed that wrong. Depth and details, examples and explanations. This is the way to get more points. And this is for your papers. This is for the discussion boards. The more you can take information and apply it to the situation, analyze it, the more you can provide detailed information that also provides insights. What does it mean? What are the implications? What's the impact? And give some examples and explain things more. Don't just give me one sentence. Discussion 3. You had to write internal and external messages. You needed to consider the specific audiences. So, for instance, I don't think it's appropriate to say, dear all external stakeholders. First of all, customers and suppliers have totally different needs. Customers don't want to know the same things as a distributor might want or a shareholder might want. So it's better to pick one external stakeholder to address because they don't all have the same information needs. And I would never address anything as dear stakeholders. That is so impersonal. Whether you do it, there were several people wrote, dear internal stakeholders, and then in parentheses put employees. Why not just say employees? And dear external stakeholders, that wouldn't make me feel very special at all. Dear customer, dear partners. So make it specific to who you're addressing to. Several people, and I don't think it's anyone here, didn't even use the overseas supplier scenario. What they used, I don't even know where they got it. I think they made up scenarios, but they had nothing to do with what the scenario was in the rubric. I have a feeling that the people who did that did not read the rubric. All right, so here we go, Amy, with discussion 4. What you are doing is you are going to pick a message from module 3. You're going to pick an internal and an external. It can be from the same person or it can be a different person. My suggestion to you is if you pick someone and when you read their internal or external message and you see that it's not about the scenario, I would pick somebody else because it's going to be a lot harder to do if the person did not adhere to the scenario. So you're selecting 2 messages that were written in module 3. You're taking the original message, not the message where somebody might have made comments for improvement. Then you're going to look and review the legal, brand, and compliance issues related to the scenario and the internal, external messages. So, for instance, if one of the companies, if the overseas supplier was doing shoddy work or had also the issues with employees, that can hurt a brand. I know somebody had used as an example, Kathy Lee
Gifford.
Griffin, right? Gifford, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Kathy Lee Gifford and the problems that she had a few years ago with that it came out that her products were being made in another country with child labor or something similar to that. That has implications for the brand.
Right.
In some instances, it also can have a legal issue. And other times it's compliance. Are you doing what is required in your industry or required in the company? So what you will do is you will pick the message. You will cut and paste the message into the area where you write. You're not posting an attachment like you did this week. So you're posting the message, and then underneath it, I would do it as 3 headings: legal, brand, and compliance. So you're sure you did all 3 in the response. This, the legal, brand, and compliance implications, is part of the final paper. So if you can get somebody to effectively review your work and give you brand, legal, and compliance issues, you will have a really good start to that section on the final paper.
Okay.
And you want to provide supporting or conflicting comments for the engagement posting. So it could be that you say, let's say that Kelly says, Amy, I disagree with the way you looked at the brand implications on this scenario. Here's what I think it should be. Here's what might make more sense. Or you could say, I think you did a great job. That makes a lot of sense. Here's something you might expand upon. So that's what you would do for your engagement postings. Amy, does that answer the questions you had about discussion 4?
Yes, I think where I was getting confused is you listed those instructions and then you put that module 5 is due on Monday. And I guess my part 2 to my question is everything underneath where it says the posting is due on Monday, is all that relating to module 5?
On the announcement?
Yes.
I don't think so. I think the rest of that, I think after I did that, I talked about the next paper.
Gotcha. Okay, because I think just all of that, I just wasn't sure what it related to, and that confused me a bit.
Okay, I was just trying, because having the initial posting due on Monday is so different.
Right.
I'm trying to make sure people know about it, because inevitably somebody will say, how was I supposed to know?
Right.
Well, it's there. It's clear. I've been reminding you. So I think right after I wrote heads up, it's Monday. I think then I went into the next paper. I don't think the rest of that was about module 4.
Okay. And as far as module or what you put there, when will the discussion board 5 posting be available if it's due on Monday?
I'm going to have to look at that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I can't release anything early.
Okay.
I don't understand why faculty can't do that. There's another school that I'm at that uses Brightspace, and I can change due dates, I can change times, I can change everything, but I can't change anything here.
Okay.
And I'm not really sure why.
Okay.
But that's the way it was set up.
Got it. So we probably have to be working on this on Sunday in order to have that discussion board posting ready for Monday.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is open on Sunday, but let me check that.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Okay, so are we okay on discussion 4?
I'm clear.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else? Kelly, did I just see you nodding your head yes?
Yep.
Good, okay. Here it is again. Module 5 initial posting due on Monday. Okay, reminders. It's important to read announcements. That's what Amy was just asking me about, was the announcement that I posted this morning where I did have the heads up for module 5. Also, I send out emails, so be sure you read those emails as well, because there's usually good information in them. It's important to read your feedback that you get and not just the points. There were actually a couple of the discussions that I graded today that while somebody might have gotten all the points, there was still a comment in there about what they could still do a little bit better. So make sure you read the feedback and not just the points, because you can make adjustments based on feedback. You can't really make adjustments based on points. You don't have any idea what the points mean. And if you do have assignment questions, ask them before Sunday at 10 p.m., because after that, the likelihood of my seeing it is probably quite slim. And your deadline's 11:59 p.m. And if it's after 10, I'm not sure you're going to get the assignment finished anyway. But please, I'm probably not going to be in until the next morning. Review any return documents. Make sure you use relevant sources effectively. Company websites can be used, but they cannot be your only source of information. Relevant sources tend to be articles from business journals. Relevant sources are not websites. Relevant sources are not blogs. And relevant sources are not sites that are trying to sell you services. And, it's a good idea to provide some specific examples from a company. That really shows that that's a good way of using application skills. I know last week I spent a lot of time on writing, and you might want to go back to that, but cliches, things like make or break or turning heads. Do not list a source as a reference if it's not cited, and make sure your references and citations match. So if your reference is listed by an author's name, then the citation has to be listed the same way. If the Citation starts with the name of a magazine or name of an article. The reference has to start the same way. Be clear, concise, and comprehensive. It may seem that clear and concise are the opposite of comprehensive, but comprehensive is covering all topics. Clear and concise is the way you write it, and cogent is use of evidence. So here's the 4 C's again. Clear, can I follow your thoughts? Is your writing well organized? Concise, do you make the point in as few words as possible? If you can say it in 5, are you using 10 words? Cogent, do you base information on evidence? And comprehensive is about addressing all requirements. For discussion questions, make sure you have the rubric in front of you. Same thing for assignments. The rubric will tell you what it is that you need to do, so make sure you follow it. A faculty has 6 days to submit feedback. I try to get it done in 2 to 3 days. The good news, you get feedback quickly. The bad news, I expect you to make improvement and not keep losing points for the same reason. Grading takes time, so make sure you read comments. I can grade a good paper in 15 minutes. Work that's not so good, not well written, doesn't address everything it's supposed to, that's going to take me 45, which is an average of 30. For 26 students, that's 13 hours. So grading takes a long time, so please at least spend 15 minutes looking at the feedback to know what you can do better. All right, so I said I would do a little bit on research, so here we go. Okay, so I went into the library, and the way I went in, you may go in a different way, is I log into the main page. On the right-hand side, it says Shapiro Library. I click on it. Now, I've done this all with screenshots because I was afraid if I went in, I would lose you. So, there's a search bar when you first log in. I put in discrimination because that's one of the topics for the week, the next paper. So I put in discrimination, and here's what happened. When I just use discrimination, I get over 1.7 million articles. I doubt anybody is going to look at 1.7 million articles. You can see here that the search fields has more things that I can put in it. The more things I put in, the closer I'm going to get to exactly what it is I want, and it's going to reduce the number of articles. So the first thing I put in was human resource issues, and I got down to 9,000 articles. A lot better than 1.7 million, but still not great. So then I added public relations, and I get down to 709 articles. That's still high, but at least I've honed in on it a little bit more, and there's less articles, and I seriously doubt anybody's going to look at 709 anyway. If you look at 20 on the first page, that would be great. So the more you can hone in exactly on what you're looking for, the better results you're going to get in using the library. So this is what it looked like. Specific words get better results. Discrimination, one word, 1.7 million. Discrimination in HR down to a little over 9,000. And discrimination HR and PR, I get down to 709. There's 2 major business databases, ProQuest and Abesco Host. They're both good, but I prefer Abesco Host. And I'm not saying you have to use Abesco Host. I'm just going to tell you why I prefer it. I prefer it because you get an abstract. And I think I can decide more on an abstract whether or not this is a good article for me than just having the title of the article. So just something to think about. Now, some of you may have used Google Scholar, so I want to show this to you as well. You get into Google Scholar by doing scholar.google.com. And I'm doing the same thing. I put in discrimination. Notice I only check articles. I don't want case law. When I go in, I make sure I uncheck include patents, but on the left-hand side, you can see I can actually pick a date range. Since 2009, since 2018, 2015, or I can customize the range. That's one way to avoid having outdated articles. I honestly can't remember which class it was. I think it was the other one. But someone had posted something this week about recently, it was the other class. Recently, it was discovered that celebrity endorsements really make a difference in how well the brand does. Well, it was a 2009 article. Research since then has shown the exact opposite. So don't say something is recent when it's 10 years old. So that's a good way with Google Scholar, is to hone in on the date that you'd like. I usually do the last year, so I would do 2018. Peer-reviewed articles, which is what you find in Google Scholar, are articles by experts, and they use empirical research, which makes it harder to read, longer, because there's lots of research statistics in it. I don't think you have to use peer-reviewed. If you use Google Scholar, you're going to get into peer-reviewed. I'm fine with business journal articles that are easier to read, more up-to-date. They're accessible through the Shapiro Library, and they're also accessible through journal websites. So as long as you're using something, I'm happy. So some best practices. Papers need a cover page. Oops, this is from the other class. I didn't update this with your class. Let me find. It's not your folder. Here's your folder. I can't remember what the next paper is, but I'm going to, does anyone have what the next module, you don't have a paper in module 4, do you?
No, module, the next one. Yep.
All right, that's why I messed it up, because, and sorry about that. I think your next paper is actually an article review.
Milestone 3, I think, is our next one.
Milestone 3?
Yeah, and then after that, I think there's a break, and then there's a short paper, I believe.
Okay. Let me, sorry about this. I have all the rubrics in here, but it would be so much smarter to have them all in the right order, wouldn't it? Than to just stick them all in a folder. Milestone 3, okay. All right, so in milestone 3, this is why I did discrimination. In milestone 3, you're taking your same company, and what you're doing, instead of the scenario with the overseas supplier, there is a problem in the organization with discrimination. I'll go over a lot more of this next time. And you're going to come up with an offensive or defensive strategy. One of the ways people get very confused is they think an offensive strategy is fighting it, but an offensive strategy is being proactive. And lots of people do a really good job coming up with a proactive policy against discrimination. So for instance, they might come up with a policy that they are going to have a daycare center in the building. That would be proactive, as opposed to saying, we're not going to discriminate against women anymore, and a defensive strategy. And it's going to be similar to the paper you just had. There's communication context, communication need, internal and external communications. The difference is the focus is on discrimination. Sorry about that. Whenever you have a paper to do, match the citations and references. In APA, you avoid first person, you, your, and contractions. You want to address all the required elements. And as I showed you last week, what I think is the best thing to do is take every requirement and make it a heading. Make sure you eliminate redundancies, that you're not saying the same thing in different spots. And definitely review papers before submitting it. And I think the best thing to do is to read it out loud, because you can pick up on mistakes that you've made that you will not find if you read it to yourself. Preview feedback from previous papers. You'll have feedback to look at from this module's paper. And then also last week on the module 3 slides, there were lots of comments and lots of suggestions for improving writing, as well as a lot of writing mistakes were included. So that's a good thing to review as well. The deepest sin is believing without evidence. That's why you have to use research on everything, is you need the evidence. The biggest problem in communication is the illusion that has taken place. Despite the fact that I post announcements, that I give you feedback in your papers, that I post emails, that I'm doing these sessions, some people still aren't hearing it. So I can't assume that because I said it, everybody's heard it, which is why I tend to repeat myself a little bit. Best practices: be clear and concise and comprehensive. Remember, I said those are not mutually exclusive. You want to be analytical, insightful, provide examples, and supporting evidence. The place where most people fall down in both the discussions and papers is they're not analytical enough. All they do is report on what they read. They're not insightful. They don't talk about what it means, what's the impact or the implications. They're not providing any examples, and they're not using research. They're doing it all from their opinion or their experience rather than finding sources. Some reminders. I love this quote from Audrey Hepburn. Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. So if you believe you can get this done, if you believe you have the skills and the knowledge and the ability to do everything that I'm expecting in this class, you'll do it. If you're saying that everything I'm asking for is impossible, you don't get it, you don't understand it, you won't do it. Wonderful quote from Henry Ford: whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. So assume you can get stuff done and you'll get it done. All right, so questions. I'm going to try and go back to being able to see. Oh, does somebody else join us? Oh, no, I got everybody. All right, I want to see if I can get back to the chat box to see if anybody has any questions. We can type them in there, or you can ask them verbally. Come on, no questions? I couldn't have explained everything that well.
Now my question was about Module 4, and you clarified that very well for me. Other than that, I think I'm all set.
Okay. Nicole, any questions?
I'm good as well, thank you. I think you were very clear, so this was helpful. Thank you.
Okay, and Kelly?
Very helpful. I
Okay.
had some questions, but you covered them.
All right. So if there's nothing else, we'll call it a night. I'll get the video ready and post it, and we'll see if this is something that anybody besides the three of you wants me to continue doing.
Okay.
Thank you again for doing this. I find it very valuable.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Night.
Good night.
Here.
Night.